What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jeremy here with a new video. So if y'all haven't noticed, it seems as though anime has gotten a lot more mainstream. Take one look at your TikTok, Instagram, or even your Pornhub queue. Oh, wait, nope, that's a different type of anime. Never mind. But regardless, I think we can all agree that it's quite obvious that something has changed. Don't get me wrong, anime has always been popular. Millions of kids clearly watched the shows, bought the toys, played the games, and were obsessed with the cards. But for a while, there was a certain stigma that overshadowed the genre and the people that declared fandom to it. That stigma? Virginity! Just kidding. Not really. But seriously, liking anime didn't necessarily end your social life, but saying you were into the same weird shows as the kid who ninja ran down your elementary school hallways definitely didn't do anything to help your social credit score. However, despite the stigma, growing up, I, just like many other kids in the 90s, still fell in love with the genre. There were shows like Pokemon, Gundam Wing, Yu Yu Hakusho, and of course the legendary Dragon Ball Z. And that's just to name a few. With its unique but stunning designs and animations, its deep, compelling, and sometimes surprisingly mature plots, and of course the fight scenes, how could anybody forget the fight scenes? So to me, it was always clear that anime was a dope genre deserving of praise and worldwide recognition. But the fact that it's made this sudden shift into the mainstream is just wild to me. Nowadays, it's like everybody and their moms are openly into anime. I'm talking everywhere I look, I see Naruto headbands being worn unironically, Baki t-shirts at the gym, and girls on TikTok cosplaying as everyone's favorite waifus. Whereas before you were considered at least a little bit of a nerd for liking anime, now it's seen as charmingly quirky, trendy, and in some cases, even kind of sexy. So what's changed? How did liking anime go from nerdy niche to trendy fad? Let's jump right into it. So the first thing I think is important to acknowledge is the prominence of streaming services. Anime is just way more accessible now. There are services like Crunchyroll, Netflix, Hulu. I mean, the possibilities are pretty much endless. Back in the day, if you wanted to watch anime, you had to commit to that. You either had to actively tune into Toonami or Adult Swim at a specific time, buy a VHS or DVD, or at best, watch it at a friend's house. And chances are, if you didn't have time or you weren't that interested in the first place, then you probably would never get around to tuning in and testing out those anime waters. However, fast forward to 2022, and literally every streaming service has some kind of anime content on it. Gone are the days where you had to commit to buying a DVD box set for $39.99 US. Now you can just get drunk, create a Crunchyroll account, and watch the random anime your weeb friend from work has been begging you to check out. You met a hot girl at the bar that's into anime, and you really wanted to see your Monkey D. Luffy? You're in luck, because you now have access to all 20 seasons of One Piece at the press of a button. Now Luffy won't be the only one getting stretched out that night. You're welcome. Next up, I have to give credit to Hollywood. As much as I had something to say about Hollywood's woke ideology in my last video, if you haven't seen it already, feel free to check it out in this link. Hollywood Studios, specifically Disney's MCU, has really done an amazing job integrating nerd culture with the mainstream. By staying true to the source material while simultaneously making their movies palatable to a broad audience, I think the MCU has really helped bridge the gap between what's nerdy and what's mainstream. Look at the turnout from any MCU movie from the past decade and you'll see pretty diverse audiences. It's not just dudes that look like they play Dungeons and Dragons, it's literally any and everyone you could possibly imagine. When characters like Spider-Man and Thor were just animated cartoons or comic book drawings, it ultimately gave the impression that anyone who was a fan of these things was either a 9-year-old boy or a loser. Obviously, this is not the case. At least not always. However, once they turned Thor into a live-action packed movie with solid acting, compelling plots, and Chris Hemsworth's abs, all of a sudden you have a movie that kids, adults, and even thirsty women of any age can enjoy. I think after the MCU and other superhero universes bridged this gap between the mainstream and the nerdy, as a result, the same ended up happening for anime as well. Once it became socially acceptable to say you liked Superman out loud, it also became more acceptable to say you liked Goku. Like my boy Thanos would say, balanced as everything should be. Now finally, where I ultimately think we can trace anime's current surge in popularity to starts with something that took place over 20 years ago. That something was the phenomena that was Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Toonami, and most importantly, the kids that watched it. Try to stick with me on this one because I think this example goes a bit deeper than the other two conclusions that I came to. Now, if you look back at the 90s and early 2000s, Cartoon Network, Toonami, and Adult Swim were a complete vibe. Low-key, they were the ones that gave us some of our very first introductions to off-brand humor, underground hip-hop, and of course, anime. Now, when I really think about it, it's crazy how the guys over at Cartoon Network created this station that facilitated and helped grow this kind of unique, nerdy, nerdy/street/artsy culture. I just remember either getting home from school or staying up late to watch Toonami or Adult Swim and just getting this totally different experience that I wasn't getting from Nickelodeon or Disney Channel. Like I said, there was this underground vibe that felt mature, especially obviously with Adult Swim, but also really artistic as well. Like, even if you took the anime out of it, Toonami and Adult Swim just gave this abstract, comedic, and chill vibe that I didn't get anywhere else. It was kind of like if Tumblr, Comedy Central, and a lo-fi YouTube playlist made a baby in the form of a television network. But if you think about it, in a lot of ways, it's at least partially thanks to them that we have a whole generation of adults in the West who have this unique artistic style and, most importantly, raised on anime. While Cartoon Network wasn't able to change the general stigma towards anime on its own virginity, they were able to influence the future generations that would go on to establish anime as a part of mainstream culture. Now that the kids that grew up watching anime on Cartoon Network are old enough to truly have an influence on culture, anime has naturally been able to step more into the limelight. Gen Z and millennials in their 20s and 30s are the ones that end up setting trends and influencing younger generations. Many of us even have kids of our own, which means even more kids are being introduced to anime at an earlier age. Bear with me on this, but I would even take it a step further and say that I think what has allowed anime's popularity to grow even more exponentially is the fact that it wasn't just anyone who gravitated towards anime. Like I said, the whole television studio that was Cartoon Network really curated their content in a way that catered towards and cultivated the creative minds that would tune in. And it was ultimately that type of person who was prone to watching anime. And while those people might have just been creative kids back in the day, I'd say it's usually the people with imagination, talent, and creativity that eventually end up becoming some of the most influential people in society. See where I'm going with this? It's one thing when you're the average millennial who has a small influence on the people around them, but when you're someone like Kanye West with millions of stans across the globe, saying you like anime and even integrating it into your own work is enough to make the whole world fall in love with the genre in an instant. From Ariana Grande to Frank Ocean, so many of the actors, musicians, and creative geniuses of today have cited anime as some of their biggest inspirations growing up, and it shows. Kanye West's Stronger video is basically a love letter and damn near live-action portrayal of the legendary anime movie Akira. Meg Thee Stallion constantly reps anime and even cosplayed as Todoroki for a magazine cover. And in Frank Ocean's Pink Matter, he's pretty much singing about Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z. At least for the most part. Cartoon Network, Toonami, and Adult Swim helped plant the seeds in the minds of millions of kids back in the 90s and early 2000s, and now 30 years later, we're seeing what those imaginative minds have grown into. What these famous artists and celebs do is give anime the cool cosign it always needed. Now don't get me wrong, anime has always been cool, but once you have people with the kind of clout that Michael B. Jordan has co-signing on something like Naruto, it changes the game completely. It also doesn't just stop with mainstream celebrities. YouTube and social media internet sensations like RDC World, Caleb City, Daquan Wiltshire, and even ABBA from ABBA and Preach have gone on to express their love or at least general interest in anime, and in some cases even incorporating it into their own brand. The fact that these social media stars appeal to a broad audience and don't fit under an umbrella of what a stereotypical fan looks or acts like just helps bridge the gap between anime and mainstream that much more. Even streamers like Pokimane and SSS Sniper Wolf or a corn star like Violet Myers also help break the stereotypes that girls are not into anime or that they can't be attractive while doing so. It's people like this that show the world that you can like something like anime and not necessarily fall into a certain stereotype. Overall, I'm just happy to see anime get the shine it deserves. Like I said, I've been a fan since I was a kid and have always advocated for it since then. So to see meatheads at my local gym walking around with Baki stringers or hear a star athlete proclaim that Vegeta is their biggest inspiration really warms my anime-loving heart. But let me know what you guys think. Why do you think anime has gotten more popular? Are you guys here for the anime uprising, or do you think people are just trying to latch on to the latest new trend? Like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And until next time, peace.